Welcome to the McFaddin-Ward House, home of WPH and Ida Caldwell McFaddin, their daughter Mamie, and son-in-law Carol Ward. Built in the oil boom years of the early 20th century, it is locally one of the few remaining grand-scale Beaux-Arts colonial homes. As you enter their house through these oak and beveled glass doors, you'll step back in history to see how a wealthy Southeast Texas family lived. During your hour-long tour, a docent will guide you through rooms of this historic house, and you'll see many of the furnishings and decorative objects that the family accumulated over the years. You'll hear about the lives of the McFaddins when they were an integral part of Beaumont's social and economic life. There is also a bit of Beaumont history, and we hope you'll leave with an understanding not just of the local prominence of this family, but also the way the McFaddins' lifestyles and possessions reflect social customs, aesthetic trends, and home lives of wealthy families throughout America during the first half of the 20th century. McFaddins helped settle this area on the Neches River just 50 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. James McFaddin from Montgomery County, Tennessee, came to Texas with his wife Elizabeth in 1823 when only a few families lived here. James was a tanner who began the McFaddin family cattle raising business. James and Elizabeth's son William served in the Texas Revolution at the Siege of Bexar and with Sam Houston at San Jacinto. As a colonist, William received a land grant in Jefferson County. In 1837, he married Rachel Williams, and 16 years later, they bought adjoining land from Beaumont's first family, the Tevises. The McFaddin-Ward House is on that property. The carriage house behind it is on the original land grant. William Perry Herring McFaddin was born to William and Rachel in 1856. One of 9 children, WPH was educated away from home, then returned to Beaumont to pursue various business interests, including ranching, rice farming, commercial real estate, and muskrat trapping. At the age of 38, WPH married Ida Caldwell, daughter of a prominent family in Huntington, West Virginia. Educated at Mary Baldwin Seminary in Stanton, Virginia, Ida became a social and civic leader who entertained lavishly in this house. She was active in the Episcopal Church, the Daughters of the American Revolution, and the local children's home. Ida also served as a Red Cross volunteer during 2 world wars. For about 2 years after they were married, WPH and Ida lived in a simple frame house not far from his parents' home. Daughter Mamie was born during that time. In 1896, they moved into a larger Queen Anne-style house on Calder Avenue. WPH spent a lifetime acquiring land. In one of his most profitable ventures, he and his partners bought property south of Beaumont for pasture land. In 1901, the Lucas Gusher blew in on that land, later known as Spindletop. 2 large oil companies, Texaco and Gulf, were formed here during that time. This was the beginning of an oil boom which brought great wealth to several families, among them the McFaddins. By 1901, Beaumont was a thriving railroad and shipping center with a population of 25,000 and a booming economy based on oil, lumber, rice, and cattle. The town was expanding west, particularly down stylish Calder Avenue, where many prosperous citizens built homes. In 1906, Ida and WPH McFaddin traded their Queen Anne-style house for a new home that belonged to WPH's sister and brother-in-law, Di and W.C. Averill. Construction on the house had started a year earlier after fire destroyed the nearby McFaddin family home where the Averills were living. The new 12,800 square foot house stood just off Calder Avenue on the western edge of town. Designed by Beaumont architect Henry Conrad Maurer, it was one of more than a dozen large houses built in Beaumont during this time. Work began on a carriage house the year after the family settled in. The McFaddins' 3 children were in grade school when the family moved into the new home. Their 2 sons, Caldwell and Perry, became successful in their own right. Caldwell, an attorney who managed the McFaddin business interests, and Perry, who managed the family ranching operations. Daughter Mamie, oldest of the 3, attended Gunston Hall in Washington, D.C. In 1919, she married Carol Ward, son of John C. and Belle Carol Ward. Carol was a Texas A&M football star, a World War I pilot, and local businessmen who, as president of his family's ice company, built the city's first ice skating rink. The McFaddin-Ward House is significant for its contents as well as its history and architecture. The furnishings you will see during your tour are original to the house, and in many cases, the purchase and use of these items are documented by invoices, photographs, letters, and bills of sale saved by the family. Some objects in place when Mrs. Ward died can be seen in photographs taken in the house when she was just a young girl. Throughout the years, other rooms, such as the library, were redecorated. This combination of decorative styles reflects the way the family accumulated objects and redecorated rooms according to changing styles over a period of several decades. Fortunately, the McFaddins saved outdated pieces by storing them on the spacious third floor, once used for their sons' bedrooms and a home office for WPH. The museum therefore has a rich collection which tells us much about changing tastes and needs over a span of almost 100 years. Before she died in 1982, Mrs. Ward established the Mamie McFaddin-Ward Heritage Foundation so that her home could be maintained as a museum. A year later, the foundation began restoration of the home. A climate-controlled system was installed and textiles were replicated, including window treatments and portieres. Restoration of the carriage house began 5 years later. The carriage house includes a stable and hayloft, a garage, gymnasium, and the living quarters of those who worked for the family for many years. Visitors can learn about these faithful employees who maintained the house and provided services such as cooking, laundering, and cleaning. They were responsible for the day-to-day operations of the home and are an essential element of its history. The 8,100 square foot carriage house opened to the public in 1992. It contains historically documented room settings and exhibits which visitors may tour at their own pace. Mamie McFaddin-Ward loved her family and her home. She continued the legacy of cultural leadership and generosity started by her parents. Today, the McFaddin-Ward House, a registered Texas landmark listed on the National Register of Historic Places, sponsors a full range of education programs and community events. A strong volunteer base makes many of these activities possible, including the tour you're about to take. As your tour ends, you'll pass through the Rose Garden with more than 50 varieties of flowers. Other areas of the grounds are planted with 400 azaleas which bloom each spring. Bulbs, daylilies, annuals, perennials, trees, and shrubbery provide year-round color. We welcome you as a guest of the museum and hope you'll find your tour an enjoyable learning experience. We thank you for coming.